Well, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Alaska's Political Pipeline. I'm John Thompson, coming to you from Midtown Anchorage, the Alaska's News Source studio. Today, Will speaks with leadership of the Republican House minority. That's House Minority Leader Delana Johnson, a representative out of Palmer, also House Minority Whip Justin Ruffridge out of Soldotna. Now, both of these two brand new in their positions. Johnson became the leader after Anchorage Republican Representative Mia Costello stepped down, actually accusing Johnson of threatening her to step down. Johnson denies those allegations. Then the previous minority whip, Kathy Tilton, became a senator following some shakeups in the upper chamber. Ruffridge fills her seat. Now, we're sure you're aware, a lot on the table for lawmakers this session. There's a lot being discussed. Will's got his ear to the street. We've been breaking that all down in long form here on Alaska's Political Pipeline for the last few weeks. It includes the Rural Health Transformation Fund, balancing the budget with a roller coaster of oil prices, and of course, the proposed liquefied natural gas line. Will breaks all that down with minority leadership, also asking about the state of the caucus more than halfway through the legislative session.
Hello and welcome to Alaska's Political Pipeline. I'm political reporter Will Courtney, and sitting down alongside me I have the House Minority Leadership, Representative Justin Ruffridge and Representative Delana Johnson. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. Let's kind of just start from the top. There's a lot of issues on the plates of the legislature right now. With half the session now wrapped up, how are you guys feeling about how the session is going?
Well, I mean, I think we still got a long ways to go. I think right now we've just been setting the stage for what the final couple months will be, and there's a lot of uncertainty out there in our oil prices, which has makes a big difference on our budget. So I think we're all kind of trying to figure out where we're going really right now. Whether we started out in low oil, low prices, slim budget. Now there's a lot more largesse, and so people are trying to figure out exactly what that budget's going to look like.
Yeah, and that's been the center of this supplemental budget conversation. Kind of explain to me what the minority is arguing with that issue.
That's FY26 money. So the minority, the goal there is just not a lot of excess spending, no draw from savings, especially since we've had an influx of money. We have a new revenue forecast coming out. The spring revenue forecast says that we're about 500, I'm trying to remember exactly, I want to say 570 million that we have extra. So that should fill in all the supplemental, and we have been standing firm on not drawing from savings.
Yeah, and kind of caught in the middle of this issue, I know members of the majority have also kind of raised this, and I think I'm really recalling back to a Senate majority presser where there is this conversation that we might have this money now. We have this money from the oil, but then there's also the question of volatility, and so much of the state's economy is built on a volatile resource. How do lawmakers move forward to really fuel Alaska's economy in a less volatile way?
Well, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the spring or fall forecast. It's always based on, I mean, oil's always volatile. That doesn't change. Right now, obviously, there's big swings. But so we're always having to play a little catch up. That's why we do our forecasts twice a year. Is it going to be $120 oil, $150? Well, we don't know. We have resources to fix that. We can come in, give a CBR draw anytime, and change that. We have access to money. We have access to our savings account if we have to. But if we don't have to, then no, we don't need to spend out our savings until we know that we're going to need to do that.
Yeah. I think one of the more interesting things for me in this process is seeing that, when you come down to this revenue forecast for the spring, you get to see what the revenue was in the past as well. So a lot of the narrative has been around, well, there's a conflict in the Middle East. That certainly plays a part in it. But some of the revenue forecast was actually, we shot low in the fall, and we've been above it for 8 months. And so there has been revenue generated in oil for 8 months, and that money is sitting in the general fund now. We've had additional increases in corporate income tax. We've had new mineral income coming online. So the narrative around this revenue forecast has been conflict, but that's only a piece of it. The other piece is we're actually doing some other revenue sources from the fall until now as well. And I think that you have to take all of those things into account. When you ask about volatility, you have to consider too that we base our entire budget off of a dollar amount of oil. And you want to say, well, how do you have less volatility? Well, you base your budget on a dollar amount that you can reasonably hit. And that's why you'll hear people talk about this budget balances at $60 a barrel or $55 a barrel. And so, you know, one of the conversations we have a lot in here is we would be smart, we would be good, responsible, you know, governors of the monies of the state of Alaska if we were to budget based off of a lower dollar amount of oil. And so when you have a really high price right now, the temptation is there to say, well, we can build a budget on $72 a barrel. Well, that would be irresponsible spending. So the role of the minority is to bring those things forward and say, I think the responsible thing to do is to build a budget off of, even if the price is high now, you should base it off of a lower price.
Yeah. Looking to a broader picture, what are the priorities of the party right now? Or of the caucus?
Well, we're a business-oriented caucus. We have a lot of business owners, so we look at things a little bit differently as far as maybe in, you know, different ways of looking at things, but in the sense that we want to see Alaska being open for business. We want to see businesses be able to thrive. But one of those things, we all know that we have to have cheap energy. So we're looking to see how do we get this gas line. We see the opportunity. We know that there's an opportunity right now. As much as you may not, you know, like what's happening in the Middle East, there is things happening in the Middle East that makes Alaska's gas very, very important to the world market. So our number one priority is the gas line and getting the gas line out the door, not missing the opportunity that we have right now. I can't overstate that enough.
Yeah. Well, let me ask a little bit about the gas line. The governor presented his tax relief bill, hitting things like sales tax, income tax, property tax relief for upwards of 10 years or until the pipeline reaches a certain amount of output. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about that bill. Obviously, a very complicated bill for it only being 7 pages, but a lot obviously in that, and curious your thoughts.
We'll be looking forward to seeing the hearings on it, hearing more about it, and I really am looking forward to it. And I'm sure certainly Representative Ruffridge will have some input. I mean, he comes from the Kenai, which is very much impacted, the Kenai borough. But it's a new tax structure. It will require some new regulations. It will have a lot of work needs to go into it. And I know that the municipalities will have a lot to say there, but it's absolutely critical that we get that hammered out. We can't step back from that and talk about it forever. We can't continue to talk. I think there's a lot of work that's already been put into it up front. I'm kind of excited about that they finally got the gas tax bill out there, and it looks like it's going in the right direction. That's the last piece that we need, and we need that we can actually do something about here in the legislature to get to move the gas line along. So that's definitely a responsibility for us that we need to start moving on it. I think it's innovative. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'm happy that I know that North Slope Borough, Kenai Peninsula Borough, those are the two big impacted boroughs, but there's other boroughs too, have had input into putting this package together. So I think we're in a good starting spot. I'm looking forward to seeing what form it takes and not slowing that down at all.
Oh man, I'm so excited about that proposition. And I mean, 60 days doesn't seem like a long time, but I mean, this body can move very quickly when it wants to. And I think we're sitting on an opportunity here that could revolutionize a whole section of Alaska for the future. And I think that we're right to take the time and the due diligence to go do that. That other than having to pass a budget, there is no greater thing that we could be spending our time on right now than discussing how do we get this thing to the end. And it's a world-changing project. No one person can have a say really in how that ends up, but if we put our collective effort behind it, I think my greatest fear in this session is that we don't give it the due diligence that we need to. And it is somewhat frustrating being in a minority position because you don't really get to say that a hearing happens or doesn't happen. And so in a lot of ways, you're just always encouraging, hey, can we please hear that? This is important, this is important, this is important. And I think if you were to ask Alaskans in general, what is the best thing that we could do in 2026? I think they would say, if you have a chance to build a gas line, please build it. And there's the thing that will do 15, 20, 25, 30 years down the road for boosting Alaska's economy, I mean, the benefits to it are almost incalculable. And you look at other like states or countries who have invested into energy projects, it is the currency of the future. We have an obligation to take it seriously. You have to.
And all at the same time of this conversation, across the divide, hearing from members of the minority, the majority, even members of the federal delegation, there is a call for some more information on the financials of the project. Do you believe that more information needs to come from Glenfarne?
We have to get this tax piece hammered out. That's actually the final component that they say that they need to do the final financials on it. So, I mean, they're waiting on us. Yeah, we certainly, nobody wants to go into it without knowing all the facts. But we have to figure out, this is our piece, we have to get this done. We have to get the property tax piece figured out, and then the financials for the project, of course, that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Well, I think too, going back to like the idea that this is a world project. It's not an Alaska project. It's not even a United States project. This is a project that will benefit the world scale. And to say, well, so-and-so hasn't given enough information, I mean, the fact of the matter is we didn't know who Glenfarne was a year ago. And I think that they're moving very, very quickly down a path and generating a lot of, I think, connections on the world stage, as well as agreements on the world stage. And those things don't happen quickly. And to me, they've happened quicker than I would have expected them to. So there's this sense of urgency behind it that I really think we should capitalize on. And I think playing your cards close to your chest, given the fact that there's always going to be naysayers, is probably smart at this moment until you have all your ducks in a row. And then you come out with something that's exciting and you say, see, I told you, this was going to be something that we could do. Otherwise, I fear sometimes this building operates more in a negative sense than in a positive one. And, we should shift our viewpoint to how can we do things that are positive for our state. That's one of them.
Obviously, you're in the minority, and you have to kind of do calculations of how can we get across the divide, because it seems like, not all, even the House Majority Leader has an op-ed saying that we got to push forward on this, but on the other side, in the other house, or in the other chamber, the Senate Majority President really says we need more information before we can push anything forward. So what are your kind of calculations on this particular bill at this moment, and do you think it can get across the finish line by the end of the session?
I think we have to do our due diligence. I don't think there's any question about that, and I don't think anybody's suggesting anything otherwise. Do I think that we could move this across the finish line by the end? Yes, if everybody's serious about trying to make it happen. And that is in no way saying that you should ignore anything. But big energy projects, if anybody's familiar with big energy projects, they will be putting lots of pieces together, and we're seeing that already. They're put together the Donlin gas line. They're putting together contracts for local area gas. They talk about a variety of these other components or pieces of that. They are bringing all those together, but they don't necessarily have all those nailed down, because you can't nail something down on a hope and a promise, right? So you can't make absolutes out of something that it's not absolute. It will all come together very fast. When we have the tax structure put together for our boroughs, that will be a huge piece of it. And can it be done? Yes, it can be. If we're serious about it, I know that the boroughs are serious about it. The municipalities, they want to have the discussion and get it sorted out. Everybody recognizes that we've got probably a 2-month window right now. Would we move into a special session? I think that's possible if we are close. That doesn't mean that we ignore it then, though, until there's a special session. I think that would be problematic. So I think we really can, and if we don't quite make it, we'll have an opportunity to continue if we need to. But it's a priority. It's a priority for us. I would like to see a priority for presentations starting. I'd like to see that invited testimony from the boroughs. I would like to see a good sense from the Department of, from taxation, from revenue, how that could look. So we're starting to build on the information that we have into a solid, all this into a solid piece. I think all the components are there. I think it's just bringing those to the committee and educating the legislature and getting us up to speed. And I absolutely think that can be done.
Kind of switching gears a little bit into the party. You're both brand new to your positions as House Minority Leader and House Minority Whip. Tell me a little bit about what you've learned in the 60 some odd days since you've officially started your position here in the legislature.
Justin's newer than I am.
Yeah. I've learned a lot. I mean, I come from a business background, so I'm used to working with people. And you know, in healthcare, it's very people-centric, and I do work as a pharmacist. I have learned a great deal of patience, I feel like, in this role, and have a lot more to learn. Typically, my position in a business world is if you see the thing that needs to be done, you make it happen. And in politics, there is so many more layers to that, and you have to go. It's so much talking and meeting in every single person's office. So, you know, I've in this role, I've scheduled with all 18 of our minority members weekly meetings where I'm in each of their offices and going over what their priorities are, and it's just it's a lot of that layering in what each person thinks, what their priorities are, how they'll react in a moment, and learning that about people. It's a very people-centric thing, and different from the business world for sure.
Representative.
So I was whip. It's been a number of years, and I remember all the time. So I appreciate all the time that Representative Ruffridge has spent with our caucus, and I think it shows. I think we're coming together. It was the cohesion in the caucus is becoming more and more obvious to people outside the building. But for me, it's finance to me is my first love, and in some ways it's easier because you're dealing with the numbers and they don't necessarily change, and you can dig into that and you can not talk to people if you don't feel like it. But for me, it's the having people, the interwoven connectedness and trying to create. It's almost like a living being in the sense out of multiple personalities, and so to me, it's just the matter of considering so many more viewpoints, so many more people, so many, you know, what's happening in the building, but also trying to make sure that everyone's heard. And it's really been great. I mean, I actually think that I really like our caucus, and I like the people in it. I think we got a really smart group. I think we got a well-connected group, and we got, so, but how do you maximize that? And making sure that everyone's best assets are being, you know, integrated. That's been probably the new piece for me, and the piece that I'm enjoying that a lot, actually.
And we're running close to time. In maybe just a few kind of ideas, how would you kind of say the state of the caucus is right now?
I would say that we're generally hopeful, and I think that we're generally anticipating, you know, we're anticipating, you know, I think more good things coming together more. I would say that as you look forward, we know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I think if we had started this same amount of work or been looking forward like this in January, we would have had a lot of people that would be like, wow, how are we going to be able to navigate that? I think now I think people have a lot more knowledge as a whole of where we're going. I think they have a lot better sense of who and how they can count on each other. I think that we're building trust amongst each other. And so I would say that the caucus I think we're still working on it. I think we're still coming together, but I think there's a lot more of anticipation of a kind of being able to move as a unit and know what each other's thinking a little bit more, kind of trust amongst each other. I mean, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, it's really is a positive thing to have seen.
And with half the session down, what are you hoping to kind of focus on? I mean, except for the pipeline, obviously a massive deal, but what other issues are really top of mind?
I'm always about the budget. I mean, that's my first thing, and making sure that, everything is, everything's systematic. I'm fairly pragmatic about that. Of course, I have my cabbage bill, making I mean, we can't go anywhere and not talk about the priorities of making the cabbage the state vegetable. So. Yeah, I want to make sure that's on the radar.
I think for me, healthcare continues to be an issue. Rural healthcare transformation program is rolling out, and I've really excited to see how that gets implemented. So I've really been keeping an eye on that, both through the health committee and then meeting weekly with actually a whole group of legislators about how that gets implemented. And then being pro-business development for me, we have House Bill 161, which is seeking to exempt some small businesses and seasonal workers from the paid sick leave provisions, which are really, unfortunately, hurting small businesses, which it's already hard to have a small business in Alaska. So I think that, we have some of those, I think, really simple things to look forward to. And, those are all things that, our caucus has agreed on, and really excited to see what happens with that.
And with the rural healthcare transformation, we have to have a certain number of compacts passed to be able to maximize income, federal government, to dispense the money. So I think it's very important that we get those passed. We've all agreed that the mandatory sick leave, that one is just extremely important. As well as we're looking at the SBS bill that it's still in the Senate, but that's the supplemental benefit system. So those are three bills that come to mind, and cabbage aside, but anyway, those are some things that we're really looking at and hope to be able to act on before the end of the session.
Representatives, I appreciate your time today.
Again, that was Alaska's News Source political correspondent Will Courtney in Juneau. He's the host of Alaska's Political Pipeline. We appreciate you joining us. That's all we have for you today, as Will interviewed House Minority Leadership Representative Delana Johnson and Representative Justin Ruffridge. Again, that's all we have, but Will would like to hear from you. I'd like to hear from you, but reach out to Will on social media. A lot of ways to get to him. The best way is on X at Will with one L, WIL_court. At Will_court on X, formerly known as Twitter. Ask him questions, tell him what's on your mind and your heart, and we'll try to get you some answers. We'll see you next time on Alaska's Political Pipeline, right here on Alaska's News Source.